Hello and welcome to the Alpha Software Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. And today we are going to be talking about, we're going to be doing a reintroduction to client-side templating. Before I kick this off though, as I do every time, I need to do a quick AV check just to make sure I'm not speaking to the ether here. Can you see my mouse moving around on the screen and can you hear my voice? If you could just type that into the questions box of the chat. Oh, wonderful. Hey, thanks very much. Appreciate it. All right, so let's get going. So this is a topic that was requested a few weeks ago when I was doing sort of a survey to see what people wanted to have covered at these upcoming Alpha Software demo and Q&A webcasts. So client-side templating is not a new technology. In fact, some of the better videos I found for it, a really good one I found for it, is almost 10 years old, but we have continued to work on it and integrate it into various aspects of the product. So today we're going to go over the what's, the where's, the why's, and the how's of client-side templating. So let's just jump right in. First of all, what is it? Well, when you are setting up something like a list control or a view box control in a UX, you have got some options, especially in the case of the list. By default, when you're putting together a list, it's what's called a columnar list, which means that it's just going to list the fields one after another like you would see in a spreadsheet. But if you set in the list properties that you want to use a free form layout, you'll actually see a interface that looks like this, where you can put together the fields in the order you would like them, along with HTML and some other directives that are special to formatting. The same is true in an HTML box as well, or HTML view control or form view control. And in each case, it uses a similar sort of syntax when putting these together. You could think of client-side templating as basically taking, here's another example right here, but of taking data that's in JSON format, which is pretty typical, and merging it into a template to create an end result. And we've got some tools built into Alpha Anywhere that make this easy. But this lets you do all kinds of cool things. Like, for example, let's just imagine you're making an API call to a weather service because your app wants to display the weather. And maybe that API call comes back with things like the words cloudy or sunny or whatever. You could actually, using directives, pick up that and replace the word cloudy with actually a picture of a cloud in your interface, or the sun with a picture of a sun in your interface. You could do a whole bunch of cool things like that. And we have loads of examples. So we're going to just dive into it with a live example. And our live example today, we're going to be spending a fair amount of time here in this template tester. The template tester is a really cool interactive interface where you can mess around with a template. You can insert your own data, you can change CSS, and you can add your own JavaScript, and you could see what it will look like in the end. And based on that, you can then grab that template and use it in your UX components, and specifically within the list control and the HTML control as well. Now, there is a similar thing for the JSON forms control, and we're going to talk about that too, but much more briefly, because I think JSON forms really deserves its own separate discussion. So let's go into a live demo. I'll pop over here to my PC. Close that down. Exit without saving. Okay, so here I've got a UX control, and I've got a list control on it, and a form control on it, and a JSON form on it, and a view box control. I'm not going to even show you what that looks like. Instead, I'm going to jump into the template tester. Close that. Oops. And up here, you'll find that when you're on the Web Projects control panel, you'll find that here under Tools, and you'll find Open Template Tester window. So we're going to go click on that. And this just remembers the last thing I had in here. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. What's great about the template tester window is it has loads of examples. And to see those loads of examples, you click Load Example. And here's a simple object, simple template, but it gets down to a whole bunch of things. And one thing you'll notice here, nested array of objects, is that we can absolutely handle hierarchical data. You know, parent-child data can be handled in JSON, and it can be handled using templating as well. And we'll show you how to do that. So let's grab any one of these here. Let's go with the simplest one, which is simply hello, and this is the data, and hello, first name, last name. That's the preview. You can't get more simple than that. Let's load a different one though. Should have just sent these out, showing headers and footers with, oh, this is good. I think I've got one with, okay, so here we have our JSON data in an array, okay? So for each one of these, it's going to actually loop through and spit out what the name is. For example, Fred Smith and Laura Lineker are here. And if you'll take a look at this template, it's a little bit different. See if I can stretch this out. No, I can. Hang on a second. Oh, I just don't have focus. There we go. Right here, you can see that they've placed this thing called a header and called a footer. So besides entering in simply field names, there are some special reserved words that let you know, for example, that this is a header. Don't repeat it each time you come across a field. And this is a footer. Only put that at the very end. That's a very simple example. The one I want to show you, though, I know is here. It's the one which is using an invoice. So just hold on a second while I grab that. I think it was rather good. All right, I know the invoice one is here. Maybe someone will spot it before I do. Nested arrays of values. Processing. Oh, that's also a neat concept too. Here, oh, here's one. Oh yeah, this is a great example. So this one is called, just so I can find it again, pre-processor JavaScript example using sample data from Northwind, customers, order, and order details. So in this case, what we've put together is basically like a report. If you could take a look here, you'll see that for each one of the orders that we have in our data, we have multiple orders, and multiple orders. Each of them have got a customer, but each of the orders have got line items underneath them, order items, and you can see they've all been displayed here. So we've taken this and it's actually looped through the array, and it's even come up with totals, averages, and quantities and things like that. Let's take a look at this template in a little bit more detail. So one way we could do that is actually I don't love this view here. Let's close down the JavaScript window and the CSS window. Ah, there we go. Now we've got some room. And I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. All right. So here's the template. And the template parts that you probably make the most sense to you is when you put in a field like order ID or something like that. But if you'll take a look, there's something up here called a root. So this root thing is basically used when putting in headers and footers. When you use a root, it knows that what's going to happen is that there might be a header or a footer, but it also knows it's going to pre-process, or it's going to loop through the data that's in the array between those headers and footers. So that's what root is used for. You're going to see that from time to time. Here, you're going to see order preprocessor. We're not going to get into preprocessing just yet, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to put together an array of objects, and you do that by starting the name of the array. So example, orders or order items. And then you can place the actual items and stuff in there like we've done here. So now you're probably looking at this and saying, I think I can get this over time. But really what I wanted to show you today is not what all the different things do. I just wanted to give you an example of sort of what you can do, but I really want to help you out in letting you build these things yourself. So I want to show you some of the tools that'll make that easier and some of the documentation, things like that that are behind it. So let's go take a look. I'm actually going to jump back into my PowerPoint at the, actually, let's start here. I've built for you guys a ChatGPT spreadsheet, or cheat sheet, I'm going to call it. And I'm going to paste this here into the window. Don't get too distracted with it now. I'm actually going to use it right here. 1 second. Paste this one in. This is a great use for ChatGPT, by the way. If you haven't tried doing this, you can actually feed in documentation and then start asking questions about the documentation. And this is how I came up with this cheat sheet. I'll give it a second here to load, but I'll show you what it's done. I've taken, let me show you my prompt. This is the documentation page for Alpha Anywhere's client-side templating feature. Can you summarize the syntax? So here are a lot of things that you can do. Like I said, the field names are fine. The scopes, that's where you start going through a nested array, are here. There are formatting directives. These are great. They let you put your data into specific month, day, year formats. You could do currency formats. You can also create your own formats that you can then reuse, and that's all there too. The nice thing about this spreadsheet is there's actually links directly to the documentation for each one of these examples, which I think you'll find useful. There's text transformations as well, conditional expressions. Those are big. Like, for example, when I was saying, what if you had an API call to a weather service, and that weather service gave you back information about whether or not it's cloudy, for example, you could use ifs and thens to put in the correct images. Structural, these are cool. You can actually count the number of lines. So if you're doing like an invoice, you could say this is invoice item 1, invoice item 2, invoice item 3. That's the root one I was telling you about, and there's some other things here as well. So those are all really good to use when you are playing around with the expressions. When you are done building your template, pop back over here. Oops. You can grab the one that you built, copy it, and then you can paste it directly into your control. So for example, in the case of my ViewBox control, I had pasted this in from an example that I had before. Let me show you this one here actually, because it's kind of cool. So in this one, which is one of the samples, by the way, that comes with it, the one with the cat and the buttons and things like that. In this particular control, all I did was I added in some sample data. And to do that, I first of all went into the data source for my ViewBox control. And I said the type of data source by default, by the way, is HTML. That's just for building a static ViewBox. But if you switch it over to data, it'll then give you a prompt for your data source. Very often this might come from a list, but in this case, I just chose static JSON. And then you can load examples from there. So the sample data that I selected was just names and addresses and things like that. I could have geographical data and other things as well in ViewBox. Once that was in, I went into ViewBox properties, into ViewBox layout, and that's where I designed my layout. Now let's start messing around with it a little bit. The default here, if I do a preview, oops, actually, I'm going to load this again. Template from library. Let's choose this one. There are some built-in ones, as you can see, and they're all great examples, actually. Some of them you can modify for your own use. All right, so this is the basic template. I just want to kind of show you how this works. And if I do a preview of this template, you'll see here it is, button 1, button 2, and you'll notice these are repeating, and they're repeating because each record in my data source, which there aren't a lot, there's like 8 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, a handful, is being repeated here in the preview window. Now I can insert fields though into my ViewBox layout. So let's say where we had card heading, let's just say, let's put in the first and last name instead of just the word card heading. You can do that using the insert button, insert field, first name, space, insert field, insert last name. All right, so we're going to go ahead and preview that, and you'll see it just populates here in that. So that's, I'm saying I'm scratching the surface here, but as I've shown you, it can do totals, it can do averages, it can do grouping, it can do so many things. It's all client-side, so it will absolutely run offline in your offline applications. So I just want to encourage you to go mess around with this as much as you possibly can. It's such a cool feature. Let's show you the other 2 resources. So I'm going to paste those into the window. Go back to my PowerPoint. This is the documentation itself. This is terrific and has got loads of examples. I have to say this is one of our better documented features is client-side templating, so you won't be wanting here. Let me go ahead and put that in chat. Paste. Okay, so that's the one for documentation. I'm going to put the cheat sheet back here. Oops. Paste that into the chat window. And there's also this video tutorial. Now this is a great one because it really goes over how all of those different commands and directives work. Let me just send that off too. But I'm going to show you something about this video. I'm going to just open this up. Open link, open link. Oh, whatever, I'll just grab it. Hang on a moment. Just going to paste this in here. All right, I'm going to grab this link. And the only thing I want to show you about this video, I probably already had it open. Oh, I did already have it open, didn't I? Yeah. So it runs about 40 minutes, and it's the link that I've just pasted in. And you'll notice that when you're working in the template tester, I'm just going to scroll ahead, that it did look a bit different at the time. In other words, you had data here, template there, merge result there. Don't let that throw you off. Everything else, I've watched it from beginning to end. Everything else actually works exactly the same. Just the interface is a bit different. So don't be scared of that. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention was the form box control, or the JSON form control. Let's go over to that. X without saving. Yep. So JSON form boxes also are based on show the export settings, save, load. Also are based on a JSON definition that you can edit. I think the word is show here. Yeah, JSON form. Properties. Right. Sorry, that's not it at all. But when you're putting together JSON forms, there is a tool that will help you do that. JSON forms are over here, and you will find that under options. Sorry, back at the web projects control panel, go up into tools and then select the JSON form tester window. Open this up and you'll find that the interface is actually quite similar to the other one. A moment, I'll just restart this real quick. All right, web projects control panel, tools, and JSON form tester window. But the difference is that this is more like the UI that you would actually see. In fact, this is very similar to if you've used transform before, sort of the transform things. But what this lets you do is it gives you loads of examples that you can use in your JSON forms box. So for example, I selected a pie control as one, but let's say I chose pie chart. I haven't tried that one before. Or let me load a different one, switch. Okay. Bang, bang. You can actually test it out right here. And here's how it uses the switch. Gives you an example of that. So I'm going to say that in many cases, you probably want to take a look through these examples and see how they are put together so that you can use them in your own interfaces. All right, I probably have raised a heck of a lot more questions than I've given you answers for today, because this is a very deep feature with a lot of things in it. So really what I would say is take a look at that documentation, take a look at my ChatGPT cheat sheet, and do take a look at that video tutorial. The interface is older, but everything about it is still the same. and I hope that you will find these client-side templating to be useful in your own projects. Now, I would like to dive back into the JSON form control at some point in the future. I think it's been over a year since we've covered that one, so we'll go into that in a little bit more depth probably next time. But in the meantime, are there any questions? Let me go ahead and see. This looks like it, which is great because, oops, someone says I can't copy the cheat sheet. You know what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to open up that cheat sheet and I'm going to put it through a bit.ly link shortener. Here's my long link. And oops, I do have an account. Hang on a second. Does anyone use any other link shorteners that they like? This one's always worked pretty well for me. Go away. Okay. New one. Link. Great. There it is. So it is bit.ly/4 LJMZX0. So there's that link. I'm going to paste it one more time into chat. Maybe you can get it as the bit.ly link, or maybe you can read it off the screen. But either way, that should take you to the cheat sheet. All right. Good example of preprocessor. Great example. The one that I actually showed you is a good example of preprocessing. So do read through preprocessing in the documentation, but then go back into here and choose load example. And oops, in the form tester, not in the one. Tools, template tester, load. Here's a great one. Preprocessing arrays with custom functions before they are expanded. So here's one of the examples here. And I think what this one does is it just gives you back the first two results of however long the data set is using a preprocess. But there's one example. Another example with preprocess was this one that I showed you before. And that one's pretty good too. And that's preprocessor, which lets you get totals and things like that. Great, wonderful. So that looks like it. If you've got any other questions, go ahead and send them into guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.